Good morning, church, and welcome to the Daily Hope. My name is Chuck Butler, and the pastor of the Arts and Mars Hill. In the fall of last year, 2019, I celebrated my 50th anniversary of believing in Jesus. Now, early on, it seemed Jesus had my whole heart, but I discovered he had only a small percentage of it. So I spent that first year struggling, believing in Jesus, but not making him Lord. And I was prone to compromise. Deuteronomy chapter 26, where we're reading today, is about offering the Lord the first fruits of everything and anything he gives us. Some friends of mine were 100% steeped in Jesus, and that certainly whet my appetite for more of him. Any such victory or entrance into a promised land for me, however, seemed afar off. In chapter 26, Israel is still in the wilderness, just like I once was, wandering on my own. I was in a kind of wilderness between my birth and my young adult years. If I could just yield more to Jesus, I thought back then, and enter into that land that was promised, well, what then? In verses 1 through 4, Israel is instructed to realize, that is, realize through whom everything had been granted to them, and then bring an offering to the Lord. They must respond with what they'd been given. When I finally realized all that he had done, even before I knew him, the next thing I wanted to put in an offering basket was all of me, more of me. I wanted to show my appreciation where he had called me to worship and when I first heard the power of the gospel. Verses 5 through 10, Israel is instructed to review. That is, review the faithfulness of God, which had sustained them throughout their journey. With every first fruits offering, they were to tell the story again, how they got there, from season to season, from harvest to harvest, and maybe in hard language, paycheck to paycheck. They were to remember and review, number one, their history with God. Number two, the individuals that God had used in their lives along the way, and the names of the faithful who had influenced them. And they would recount all the places they had been with God. In essence, they were to keep retelling their testimony over and over and over again. When I started reviewing his faithfulness in my life, the very next person I wanted to tell about Jesus was the one who crossed my path. In verses 11 through 15, Israel is instructed to reserve, that is, reserve every third year a kind of benevolence fund from all of their income, a provisionary resource to help meet the needs of those who were new to the land and those who were in genuine need but already part of the established community. When opportunities to give were everywhere back in my day, my trust began to grow, and his provisions came along to match every opportunity to give. Our children learned to give because we pointed them to the source of everything, to Jesus. Finally, in verses 16 through 19, Israel is instructed to return. That is, return to keeping the law of God in obedience, as well as return to listening to his voice. Listening and then obeying are meant to be inseparable. In doing both, they would ensure their safety and their future. When a child is about to run into the street after a ball, you want them to respond to your voice the first time you call out, "Stop!" If they know your voice and you've trained them, they will obey, they will stop, and they will be safe. I needed this kind of daily listening in my life, and the natural fruit of obedience that follows that kind of listening. In James chapter 1, he confirms that we are, us as the church, first fruits offering that is pleasing to God. And it's all about listening and obeying. Listen, he says this, if anyone only listens to the word without obeying it, he's like a man who looks very carefully at his natural face in a mirror, for once he's looked at himself and gone away, he immediately forgets what he looked like. But he who looks carefully into the perfect law, the law of liberty that Jesus provides, and faithfully abides in it, not having become a careless listener who forgets, but an active doer who obeys and follows through, he will be blessed and favored by God in what he does in his life of obedience. So listen, church, just like Israel, we must consistently realize that he has provided everything. Then respond with your first fruits offerings. Start by putting yourself fully into that offering basket. By this, we honor the Lord. Then can come other things to be added into that basket. We would be wise to review our own unique history and story of his faithfulness in our lives, then retell it often to others. Revelation says we overcome the enemy in part by the blood of Jesus and by our testimonies. We would do well to reserve extra of our provisions for the needy. That is, to grow munificent in our giving. You can look that word up later today. Finally, you can return to the Lord by both listening to him and then obeying him. So, lean into him today and start by listening to him daily. Then obedience will come easier for you. And don't hesitate to put your whole self in that next offering basket. You'll never regret it. God bless you. Have a great day.